Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Elephants. I'm your host, Destiny Farley, and today my guest is Tina Robinson. The reason I asked Tina to come on the show today is because she lost her son James to suicide back in 2011. James was a victim of bullying in high school, and he committed suicide by firearm in his home. And unfortunately, Tina and the rest of her family were also home at this time. Now, we all have experience with death and grief and loss. It's just a natural part of the human experience and the cycle of life. But there is a unique trauma when it comes to losing someone suddenly by suicide. And then there's another unique type of trauma on top of that to losing your child. So coming on here and discussing something like this is incredibly challenging. And I so admire Tina for being willing to do this and share this vulnerable part of her life with others to help spread awareness. So thank you, Tina, for being here today. And I just wanted to start off by asking you if you could just briefly introduce yourself, and then after that, share a little bit of information with everyone about what James was like growing up and as a person, and what your relationship with him was like.
Okay. My name is Tina. James was my son. He was 15 years old. I grew up, my kids were born here in Las Vegas. I grew up here. I've been here since I was 1 year old, so I'm a native. I was a very young mother. All of us are inexperienced as mothers when you start, but I was very young. I had my daughter Brianna at 22 and my son at 25. So again, trying to do it, not by myself with my husband, but just raising my kids. James was a great little boy, very energetic. He was a boy. He would have tantrums and, throw fits and wanted his way. But he was very soft and very sweet, always from baby up. Just loved hugs and I knew he was different because he cared so much about just different things. Like he would care like someone was being mean to someone, like bullying, and he wouldn't understand why, or why the world was, certain things in the world were dark, or we'd see a homeless person. He'd ask questions about that. Like, well, why? He doesn't have a family. Like he was just very caring, and didn't understand, some of the dark things in the world. But he grew up like any other child. He was very smart. Played sports, very competitive with his sister, maybe a little too much, but he was really a good kid. I knew James wasn't. I grew up with 4 older sisters, so I was the baby of 4 girls, or 5 girls total. And then my husband grew up in a house of 7 boys. So completely different families, different experiences. I knew women's stuff. He knew men's stuff. So we just kind of, raising a boy, you're just kind of like, what do I do? What's wrong with him? And then with him with a girl, like, why is she crying? So I thought, you have this perfect idea of what you want your family to be like. And I tried really hard to experience that. And I thought James, I never really had issues with him until the bullying started. He was perfect at school, would get perfect attendance awards, loved to go. And then things would start to change. I don't feel good today, or I don't want to go to school today. And, you don't pick up on those signs right away. And I didn't. And I think it started early, probably around 4th grade. Things started to change a little bit, and that's where some of the bullying started. And it got caught. They were caught doing it. Again, a school district in Green Valley. No repercussions for these kids. They had to clean the lunchroom for all the torture they put him through for months. We did some therapy with him, and the therapist thought that he was fine. We talked about moving him out of schools. He wanted to stay and thought everything was going to be fine, and then got through that. And then into junior high, things really started to change a little bit. It got worse in high school, obviously, but he was never a bad kid. Didn't have bad friends. I was always the type of mother that was always there. I asked your mother. We were friends in high school. When I got married and had kids, I didn't see my friends anymore. I didn't hang out anymore. I was a mother, and only a mother. So I was with my kids with all their activities, take them to school, pick them up from school, at home with them, weekends with them. That was what I wanted my life to be. I was a mother. I worked a little bit, but it was when the kids were at school, and that was the only time. So I always knew where my kids were, what they were doing, who they were hanging out with, what they were getting into. I was very controlling that way. Not in a bad way. I was always there. They had friends. They hung out with their friends. We had a pool and things like that. So our house was always where everybody came. I never not knew where my kids were, what they were doing. And maybe some kids are going to be like, I knew James and he did this, but I didn't know it because I thought, my kids would walk in from school and I'd be like, how was your day? What did you do? Let's talk about your homework. And then off to activities. It was soccer, swimming, hockey, always something. I just kept him very busy.
Yeah. So you were made aware of him. So it sounds like he struggled with bullying for a significant part of his childhood, like starting in fourth grade.
In fourth grade, there was a situation, and I got a phone call. And this is when I was going to esthetician school. I decided to finally do something. Kids were getting a little older. I got a phone call from the principal at the elementary he was at. He was at Twitchell. So they said there was a situation, James, another teacher on the playground caught some kids picking on James. We need you to come in. So I went in and sat down, and they went through this whole thing that they caught a couple of children, because again, fourth grade, I don't even know how old you are in fourth grade, but caught these fourth graders. They were all from his classroom picking on him. And the teacher was like, hey, what's going on here? Pulled him aside, took James, took the other kids, after they do this investigation with these kids, they finally admitted what they've been doing. Months they've been teasing him, calling him names, picking on him, just saying horrible things, throwing rocks at him, just something I just never thought could ever happen. Like, why? And again, a young mother, I'm there, early 30s with my, 8 or 9-year-old. And they're telling me this, and I don't know what to do. I'm thinking the school's going to take care of this. And they're like, so we have all the kids. And I'm like, okay, but they're all in the same classroom. You're going to put these kids all back in the same classroom together. So I was always, while my kids were through the entire junior high, or not junior high, elementary, I was always there. I was the mother volunteer in the class. I did the parties. I did the field days. I was always in those classrooms. I never saw any of that. I never saw kids messing with him differently. And maybe it was because not one other mother that year ever came in that they decided, well, James's mom's always, I just felt like he was kind of a target. He was sweet and he was a good kid. Oh, his mom's here. And then, he gets all this extra attention, that maybe that's why he was being picked on. I don't know. So they take all of these kids, and their punishment was they had to clean the lunchroom when the kids were done eating lunch for a week. That was their punishment. No, let's talk to your parents and put you kids through therapy for what you're doing to this kid. I mean, just none of that.
Right.
We were almost at the end of the year, so it was kind of like, okay, we're done. And then me and my husband, of course, got together, and it was like, should we move him? Let's take him out. We can put him back in private school, because now we're in public school. We were in private school for a very long time with both of them. And we thought, nope, let's let them be normal kids. They're getting great grades. They're super good. They do activities. We can do public school. We're in a good area. We bought a house so we could be in a good school district. With good programs. But we went through the whole summer. He did his swimming and his soccer, and he was like, no, I want to go back. It's my last year. I'm going to be fifth grader. I'm going to be the big kid. And we let him go back. And then when school started, there was an incident. And we might have been halfway through, but there was one more incident with one of the kids. So there was 5 boys and 1 girl in this group of kids that messed with him from that classroom. And I think just going through the summer and just building him up, and, you're a good kid, don't let kids pick on you, things like that, trying to talk about things with him.
This was after you
This was after we found out, and the school did nothing. So we're going to start this new school year. We're building him up through the summer. Like, you can do this. If there's problems, just come to me. We'll fix them. And they see that when things happen and then nothing gets done. So then they stop coming and asking for help. So we start 5th grade, and the one girl that was involved the first time must have started messing with him again, because after this, now he'd come home from school. How was your day at school today? How are the kids? Did anything happen? And maybe he got tired of me asking that, but I was always trying to be like, what's happening? Is anything going on at school I need to know? Mm-hmm. And it was always, no, things are fine. Things are fine. Well, the girl that was involved with that, must have been picking on him or calling him names, and they had gotten it on the playground. And he had made a comment saying, "You better leave me alone or I'm going to get my dad's gun and I'm going to shoot you." I
James
know.
said that?
James said that.
Oof.
So, again, pushed to the limit. Did he have access to any of my husband's guns? No. He wasn't even 12 yet. He wasn't even in, we did hunter safety and all that when they were old enough. But he knows his dad hunts. He knows his dad has guns. So again, I get called into the principal's office. We're the bad parents. He's the bad kid now because he's made this comment. So they were like, well, he has to see a therapist. He can't come back to school. He's going to hurt these other children. And again, I'm going, okay, this is the same kid that was involved in months and months of torture and breaking down my son. And I get it. He shouldn't say things like that. Does he mean them? But can things happen? Of course they can. I get it was wrong what he said. We'll talk about that. We'll do some therapy for that, whatever. But you need to address the real issues here of just where this all started. So again, no repercussions for the little girl whatsoever. I don't even know if her parents ever even knew any of this was going on. So James gets suspended. Okay, first time ever, in trouble. He's suspended for the comment he makes. So again, done. We're going to pull him out. He's not going to get to school with these kids anymore. We're done with all of this. So we go through months and months of therapy. And it was therapy for him. And it was a recommended school therapist. Because, again, they have a therapist there at the school. And she was completely, I believe, unqualified. Again, just the way they got things out of him, it was like he was being interrogated at a police office, at a police station or something like that. And just the things that she was saying to him and stuff like that. And I'm like, you're never allowed to talk to my son without me there ever, because you traumatized him. And again, he's going to admit to and say whatever you want him to say now because he wants out of this room. He's afraid of you. You shouldn't be afraid of a school therapist.
Right.
Terrible. So again, pulled him out, got our own therapist. And he was fine. He did therapy for a little bit, and then the therapist did therapy with him and Brianna together, and then it was, let's do it all as a family, and then, of course, let's do you and Jim, So we all did a little family therapy for a while, and she felt there was no danger, that he was a great kid. Just, I never got bad reports from the therapist, and she felt like we didn't need to do therapy anymore. And so, again, starting a new school, and we talked about, okay, kids separate when you come out of elementary and they go to all different kinds. Maybe these kids won't end up with him, but we can do private school. And he didn't want to. He wanted to stay in the public school. So we did. And he started junior high. And I think things went pretty well through junior high. I could see a little bit of a decline with him. Again, I think as a boy, and that's what I was contributing it to, was, Brianna was the accelerator. James got good grades as well, but then with her, he'd compete in games and sports and things like that. But he's like, she can get the A's. I don't care. I got a B. I'm fine. He never really wanted to over apply himself like she did. And we were okay with that. Just you need to go to school. You need to do your best and you need to do your homework and things like that. Towards the end, we started to notice he was always in accelerated classes because they would always test really high. And that's where they put you when you need to be there. And I think he was bored a lot of it because he would just stop doing his homework. And then we'd have a talk about that. And he's like, well, it's too hard. I don't want to do the accelerated classes anymore. And I'm like, well, I can't just take you out of accelerated classes. That's not how it works. So then he would come up with his own ideas. Like, I'm not going to do my homework and I'm going to do really bad. They'll take me out. And then I can have the easier classes and then just not apply myself because I don't want to anymore. So he'd take exams and then not do his homework for an entire semester. And he'd get like a B+ or an A-, and they'd be like, we're not moving you. You didn't do homework or study for a semester and you still passed the exam. Yeah. I said, well, buddy, you're not really, we know you're smart. And I said, so these are, you can't go into basic math when you need to be in, trigonometry or whatever. I said, so, these are just the things you have to get through, so we noticed that little bit of a decline junior high. He wanted to do more playing, more video games, more of the sports, but you have to do both. And we've got to equal it out here. So we didn't have any issues. We didn't have any going to the principal's office, no problems with kids that I knew of, and still talked about things on a daily basis. And then we got into high school and I don't even know what happened. It was just like, it's like putting a 5-year-old with, 20-year-olds. It was terrible. You put these little 14-year-olds in high school, and there's 17 and 18-year-old kids, and it's just a mix of, it's like culture shock for them.
Right.
And we made it through for his freshman year, and he stopped talking about what was happening. And I didn't find out a lot of things until after the fact. Kids coming to me and saying, well, he did this, and he helped me with this, and this and this was going on with so-and-so. And I just think that he stopped. Either he thought he wasn't going to get the help that he needed from either the school, or he was tired of his mom coming in and having to try to kill everybody, that was there because they were messing with her kid. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know. His grades were fine. We got through freshman year. He was the type where super competitive. And would play sports. He swam, he played soccer, started high school, wanted to run track, wanted to do wrestling. And he was the type of kid where he'd excel and he'd get, first place, or he'd get awards or trophies. And then that one time that he didn't do so well and someone would beat him, he'd have a meltdown. I don't want to do it anymore. And it was like, well, okay. You can't quit, because we don't quit. You're on a team. You have a responsibility. You have to finish it out. You don't have to go back into it and do it again, but you can't just quit. So that was kind of our theme in the house. No matter what you decided, whether it was hockey or baseball or soccer, once you commit to it, you're finishing it, whether you like it or not, unless there's a serious problem. But just because it's getting too hard for you, or you lost once and now you're, disappointed in yourself, you can't just quit. So we kind of went through that. He did great in wrestling and had tournaments out of town, and then had one loss. And it was like, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And it's like, okay, well, you have to take the wins and the losses. And life isn't perfect. And, try to talk to him about handling both of that. But that was the only issue that I had with him when we go into different things, because he wanted to do everything and I let him do everything. But he never complained about kids. His friends were usually through his sports. I've got a couple friends at swimming, got a couple friends at wrestling. Did he talk about a lot of friends at school? No. We were always so busy, so it's not like they had a whole lot of time on their hands, and they hung out. They weren't at that. I didn't believe they were at that hangout age yet. Like, Brianna didn't start hanging out until junior, senior year anyways. So he was still very young. He wasn't driving. He didn't walk off on his own. I took him everywhere. So I didn't know. I didn't know that he was being picked on. I didn't know that he was in so much pain. And it might have been going on through freshman year and into, because this started right away when school started. This all happened in September. So it was bad enough where he was in enough pain and he didn't come and ask for help that this happened. So
did you bring it to the attention of the school, or no, because you didn't know it was going on?
I didn't know it was going on, but he brought it to the attention of the school, come to find out. 5 days before he did this to himself, he went to his counselor's office and said, I need help, and I'm having problems, and I need to be moved out of this class, that these kids are picking on me.
And this is at Coronado?
At Coronado. And I cannot think of the name of his counselor right now. I'd have to look that up. And again, all the schools now adopted this policy way back, zero tolerance, that no matter who you go to, whether it's somebody on out in the playground or in the hallways, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a counselor, they're supposed to help you. And her comment to him was, I can't help you. You need to go see the dean. Who wants to go to the dean? You don't even say the dean out loud.
Yeah, it's hard enough
So
to
he
go.
did not. And 5 days later, he did this because he wasn't moved. He wasn't helped. And I never even knew what was going on. I had no idea.
There were no signs or anything right before.
They were 3 weeks into school.
Yeah.
So I didn't see him not doing his homework. I mean, it wasn't there yet.
Right.
We just started.
Yeah.
So
would you mind sharing some details of what you experienced that day that he passed away?
So I'll start with the night before. We had a normal night. It was one of those nights that I think we had activities and we were out kind of late. So we got home. We had pizza. Kids' homework were done. Everybody was getting ready for bed. And I had a ritual for myself. After everything was settled, I had a big old tub in my bathroom. And so I was soaking in my tub. And he knocked on my bedroom door. So I got out of the tub and I went to the door and he said, my stomach hurts. And I'm like, are you okay? Is it what you ate? And he's like, I don't know. My stomach just hurts. And I go, do you want me to give you something? So he took some Pepto-Bismol, little tablets that you chew. And I said, eat these and have some water and then see if it helps your stomach and then let me know. Well, I got back into my tub and off he went, and he went to bed. And I don't know. I tell myself now, because I look at it like maybe he wanted to talk. Maybe he was reaching that night because it was the next morning. And I think, and then you put scenarios in your head. I think he was making himself sick because he had to go to school the next morning, and he didn't want to go to school because this was all going on. And that's probably what it was, but I don't know. Again, I'm, just assuming or, trying to figure out what it is now when you look back. So we got up the next morning and Brianna took him to school. She was driving. So like I said, I didn't have to work. It was a day that was slow, so I ended up being able to stay home that day. So we all got up that morning, and my husband ended up not working, which was weird. So we were all home, which never happens in the morning. And I went downstairs and everybody had breakfast and everything seemed super normal. And I remember going back upstairs. They were done, ready to go. Brianna was still upstairs, probably messing with her hair because she was in her bathroom. And he came to my bedroom door is always open. So he was standing there and he said he was going to school. And, ritual. Do you have money in your pocket for lunch? Do you have everything you need? Are you good? Yes, everything's fine. I love you. And down the stairs he went. And Brianna was still upstairs, so I knew they weren't leaving just yet. And my husband was on the couch downstairs. So she's in her bathroom. He was on the couch. I was upstairs back in bed. And I heard breaking glass, like a loud noise, and then glass break. So I come down the stairs. My husband's already off the couch going towards the garage. And he throws the door back open and says, call 911, call 911. So James had gone into the garage and gotten a gun and loaded it and shot himself. I didn't know what was happening. I just know that it was bad. And I just kept thinking as I'm on the phone, I thought somebody had done something to him. The garage was still shut. And I thought, it never crossed my mind that my son did this to himself. I just thought somebody drove by the house. Somebody shot through the garage. Like, I didn't even know what to say. Just, my son is on the ground bleeding. Can you please just send help? And I didn't even realize it until they got there and they took him away. And we go to the hospital and they start doing all this investigating. I did not think he hurt himself. I did not think he did this to himself. I thought somebody did it to him. So, it was pretty traumatic. And again, you're trying to focus on what's happening, and we get to the hospital. He's already there. There's the Flight for Life is in the parking lot trying to transport him, and they've got him trying to stabilize him in the hospital. And they couldn't stabilize him. He died before they could get him on that helicopter. And I still didn't understand what was happening. I still didn't know what had been done. And through all of this, Brianna's there. And again, people like my sister had called, and so she knew, so now everybody knew, and work has been called, and so people are showing up. I still didn't understand it. They have him in the hospital, and I just wanted to be there with him. And he's got 20 people around him, and they're trying to keep him alive. They wouldn't let me go near him, and they wouldn't let me touch him. No, it's a crime scene is what they kept saying, and I didn't understand. I just wanted to hold his hand, and I just wanted to whisper in his ear. I just wanted to be there, and they wouldn't let me anywhere near him. It was terrible. They took us and put us in a room, and then they came in a few minutes later and said that he was gone.
This is at the hospital, or this is
It was
still
at the it was at the hospital. He died at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there were so many things now that I think about that were just inappropriate and comments that were said. I remember at one point I'm standing there trying to get the paramedics into the garage, because now we have the garage open and the paramedics are there and there's a cop there and he's behind me and he's like, well, that's his brains all over the place. I mean, just making comments like that. And I'm trying to like, can you pick him up? Can you get him in the ambulance? You need to get him off the floor. Like, there was so much going on around us that it was terrible.
They're almost like,
and my husband's trying to do CPR on him as they're coming in. And yeah, it was so traumatic. It was just awful.
Well, and they probably see things like that all of the time. And so they are desensitized to it because they have to be to survive and do their jobs. But then it creates this level of inhumanity when they're dealing with something like that. It does,
because then it makes, I'm angry now, going, what is happening here? And, then they're trying to separate us. They've got my husband in the living room and they've taken James in the ambulance, and then they've got me outside in front of the house, and, Brianna's in one of the living rooms crying, and they won't put any of us together. And I get it. They're trying to do an investigation and they're trying to figure out what's going on, because obviously Jimmy knew what had happened. I didn't realize what was happening. And believe it or not, as much as I'm worried because they've taken him now and I just want to go to the hospital, I see them, and I'm just very protective of my entire family, but I see the cops in the living room grilling my husband. And I just am immediately worried and defensive. And all I could think was, is they're going to try to blame my husband for this? And I still don't even know what has happened.
Right.
So again, I'm worried. I've got, it was chaos and like a fog.
When did you find out that it was a suicide and not a homicide? Like, at what point were you guys able to talk?
So when they moved it, when they were trying to keep his heart going, and they have him in the emergency room at the hospital, they put us in a little room, and my husband said, that was my gun on the floor. James had got my gun. And again, so now I'm angry, and I've got all these emotions going through my head. Like, what are you talking about? And then I'm thinking, why would my perfect, happy family be destroyed like this? Why would my son, who I thought, you know what I mean? Like, I just thought he was happy. I never saw that pain. I never did. Why would he hurt himself? Why wouldn't he come to me if something was wrong? And you immediately start blaming yourself, and then it shifts, and then I'm blaming everybody else. And I immediately wanted to attack my husband. And again, we're all walking on eggshells, and now we have to leave the hospital because now they've pronounced him. And so we go back to the house. We can't go into the house because, again, they're still doing the house. Investigating the house. So we're next door with the neighbors, and, families there and friends there. And I'm just fogged. Like, I want to go home. I don't even know where Brianna was at this point, because she's getting text messages from kids at school, and I'm like, turn your phone off. And it was terrible.
How were kids at school finding out about it? Is it on the news or?
No, it was not. But because of what happened, there was some emails that were being sent from teacher to counselor, from, I don't even know, but somebody at school knew. And maybe it was because of the kids in the neighborhood, or there was other kids that lived on the street that went to the high school. But they knew something had happened with James and that he had shot himself. And so emails were being sent to teachers and counselors and principal. And so, their student aides get to read these emails so it was getting around. And we're like going from the house. We hadn't even left the house to go to the hospital yet. She's already getting text messages. What's going on with your brother? We heard something happen. And how?
Yeah.
How is any of that appropriate? It's not. We don't even know what's happening. How do you know what's happening?
Right.
So that all came up, and they had investigators investigating all of this later from the police, or from the school. They have a school little police department, whatever they're called.
Right.
So they led an investigation. But all of this came out later, how and what was going on and all of that, the inappropriate things that were happening. finally the police came over and said that we're going to release the house. You guys can go home now. And then, so we were at the house. And then a little bit later, we finally got a call. They kept saying they wanted to do an autopsy. And again, as a mother, you're thinking, what? I don't know what that means. I haven't had anybody in my family die. I don't know what an autopsy really is. And you cannot cut open my son. I'm in defensive mode immediately.
Right.
So they're like, no, they don't have to do any of that. It's a visual autopsy. Obviously, we know what the cause of death is and things like that, but they're checking his hands and they're probably going to do a toxicology to see if he was on drugs or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I don't want any marks on my son. I'm still being protective. And it doesn't feel real that he's not there. You know what I mean? Like they're telling me my son has died and I still don't feel like, okay, when can I go get him from the hospital?
Right.
So, we get a call from the coroner's office. My husband gets the call and he, takes me, I remember he pulls me into the laundry room and it's just me and him. And that's the first time I saw him really get break down. And he said they ruled it a homicide or they ruled it a suicide. And just all of that, you take that in. And you just don't realize at that moment what that does to you. Because, again, everybody thinks you just have this vision of your home and your family. And I know bad things happen. And bad things happen to good people. And bad things happen to bad people. But you really think that those things can't happen to you. And they do. And it hits you like... I don't even know how to explain it, but it doesn't feel real. You hear stories, oh, this car crashed and it had 4 kids in it and they were drinking and all these parents lost their kids. And you're like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. But those things happen and it's real. And until something like that happens, I don't know. So again, I'm in defensive mode and I regret ever even asking it, but it was just something that came out. And I said to my husband, I go, why? Why would you leave your gun out? Why would you do that? And why wasn't it put away? And I could see that I broke his heart asking him that.
Yeah.
Because he looks at me and he said, I didn't leave a gun out. It was locked in the cabinet and it wasn't loaded. And he said he got my keys and he got into the gun cabinet and he loaded that gun himself. And so I was heartbroken that I doubted him, but I was angry. And I just wanted answers. So that was one of the heartbreaking things that I'd done. And you go into such a defensive mode that just you feel like everyone is attacking you from all sides.
Right.
And it's very hard. And I know that we were all feeling it. And I'm trying to protect him. And I'm trying to protect Brianna. And I'm not really understanding what my feelings are.
Right.
And what I have lost. Because I'm still trying to protect what I've left. And not really, everyone's there and everyone's looking at you like you're broken, and you're so broken. And I can't even remember some of the things that were going on around me. People coming over, people bringing food. You don't eat for days and you don't even know that you're not eating. You just don't eat. Yeah. You don't sleep. And yeah, it was. So that's what happened that morning. I had no idea how he, I was trying to piece it. Like I said, I thought someone drove by my home and shot him through the garage. That's what I thought happened.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't take on the concept of he did this to himself.
Right.
And that he was in so much pain that he did this to himself.
How long, you probably still struggle.
Oh, every day. Every day. We go on and we survive. And I've never been suicidal, and I still don't have suicidal thoughts.
Is it because
Am I sad?
Of this?
Even growing up and having rough times in high school and going through mental health issues that we hid and nobody talked about, I've been a person that has just dealt with things differently. Do I get depressed? Yeah. And I still am. Sometimes I think the way you're raised and the way... And not that it's normal, because it's not. We all should talk about things. You just block things out and you just don't talk about them and you act like things are normal. Because I spent 3 months at home after this, and then I was like, okay, I've got to get back in the world. I'm focusing on getting Brianna through school, but I need to try to function. So I went back to work and I just put on a face like it's fine. But then you see all these people look at you like you're broken. And they want to hug you and they want to give you attention. And it's really hard. Yeah. You just hide it. And not that that's normal or healthy at all. And I still do.
Yeah.
I still do. I cry every day. I won't lie. Every day. Something sets me off. It could be a song. It could be a billboard. It could just be a memory that pops into my head. Every day. I'm broken forever. And not that it can't function. But it breaks you in a way that I don't know if you could ever fix that break.
I don't think you can. I mean, there's a bunch of research on how trauma just never goes away. You know, you just go on from that point forward as a different person, you know? And I haven't experienced anything close to what you're talking about, but the closest thing to that was losing my grandpa. And the way that I conceptualize that is like there's these turning points in my life, and there's good ones and there's bad ones. And that was one where it was so big that there's like life before him and life after him. And it's like two separate segments in my life. And I completely changed as a person. It wasn't, I mean, even immediately, you can feel like, oh my God, this is really big. Like this feels like a big thing. I don't know how else to explain it in words, but you're going through it, and it's just a feeling that the word like grief doesn't cover it. Like it's like an unbelievable feeling. Like you can't believe that it's happening. You can't believe that this person that you just spent your entire life with isn't here anymore. Like even though we know about death, we know that it's coming, we're aware of our own mortality. When it's someone that you know and that you love and that has this whole identity, how do they just not exist anymore
in your life on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, because I believe that they still exist, but you know, here in the everyday, I can't go and drive and see him anymore. I can't
hear
go
his
and
voice.
Ask
hear him laughing,
ask him a
stories.
question, play him a new song that I think that he would like. Like I don't have that privilege anymore, and it's not something that you realize is a privilege when you have it. You know, it's so
those
mundane.
are things that you think about every day afterwards.
Right.
And those are your triggers that set you off. You know, like I think about, God, I would love to, or he would love this, or I know it sounds horrible, but I get very emotional around other people now and their children.
Yeah.
Because I feel robbed.
Yeah.
And jealous, 100%. I wasn't done. I see all the kids that, you know, cousins and my sister's kids all growing and starting their lives. And it's hard for me. I don't think they realize it sometimes, because they expect you to be involved and just be, you know, but you're still so broken. And it's not that you hate that what's happening in their lives. You're very happy for them. It hurts because you didn't get to do that or experience that, and it never will. You know, there's a lot of things, and I've been through this with some friends now that have dealt with suicide now. I had a coworker that her son killed himself. Older, not that that makes it any better, but he was probably in his early 30s. He had a wife and he had children. And all I kept saying to myself was, oh my God, it's terrible, but you still have a piece of him. And then I'm jealous all over again. Like, I don't have a grandchild. I don't have a piece of him to hold on to. Everything's gone. It's just, he's gone completely. The pet that he had died finally. I mean, just every little thing that I try to hold on to, I feel like we have a dog that is 14 now, and she's so close. And it's the last little tiny thing that I have left of being there when he was there. And I feel like it's going to break me again.
Yeah.
So you go through all of this, and you have to try to function for yourself, for your family, for your husband, for your daughter. But it's not easy.
Right.
And it's okay to get help. It's okay to talk to someone. It's okay to let it all out. But the whole first year after wasn't real to me. I waited every day for that front door to open and for him to come home. And then year 2 hits you like a brick.
Yeah.
It's real. He's not coming home. You're never going to see him again. I don't even know. And I know everybody handles timelines differently. You know, I've never been angry at him.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that.
Never. never disappointed, sad, that I feel like I failed as a mother, that I should have seen more and felt more, and I should have known that he was in pain. And I didn't. I did not. Did I notice some differences? I just thought everything was normal. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I didn't know.
I don't think you can be hard on yourself for that, Tina.
I
and
still,
I'm sure everybody tells you that.
I know, but you have something like that you just want to protect with everything in you. And it's hard to feel like you didn't fail, like I did something wrong. And then sometimes I get mad at myself and I tell myself, you're perfect. You were a perfect mother. You did everything you were supposed to do. You loved your children. You gave them everything you wanted to give them that you promised that you never got yourself, or whatever, trying to just build for them. Or maybe it was too much. I don't know. I feel like even after I lost James, when I finally could start to focus a tiny bit, I threw myself into Brianna. I need to make this happen for her. I need to get her through this. I need to make sure that, and I think that I just pushed, she wanted to get back into soccer. I said, only if you want to, if you're ready. She wanted to finish school. She wanted to go on her college visits. She wanted to go. And as much as that broke me as well, you have one that you lose and one that wants to go. And I needed for her to be what she needed to be and what she needed to do. But I lost him, and then off across the country she goes to college.
Yeah.
So that was really hard too, but it was important.
Right.
And I hibernated a lot. Nobody saw me, and I went to work and tried to function, and then I came home and just hid at home. It changed me a lot. I'm total introvert now. Socially, I get social anxiety like you would not believe. And here, almost 12 years later, I feel like people still are looking at me like I'm broken. Like, oh, that's Tina. This happened to her. I feel it, and I know that's not happening.
Yeah.
But that's what I feel. And it makes me anxious.
Yeah.
All the time.
Are you uncomfortable talking about it, leisurely in social
settings? No, once you get me started, I love to talk about him, and it makes me feel good to let it out. It really does. So no, I love to talk about it. I don't bring it up, and I won't talk about it. And I tell people if they do bring it up and they immediately are apologizing, or something's come up and he's in it, or about a situation, and I'm like, doesn't bother me at all. I'm not afraid to talk about things. Ask me questions if you want to. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's nothing embarrassing about what happened.
Right.
It's unfortunate. But again, that's where it came in with the school. Don't talk about it. We don't talk about suicide. We can't, no, nobody can see a counselor. That didn't happen here. So we don't have problems like that here. And just, it was terrible.
So there were no repercussions for the kids that bullied him?
No, so come to find out, I think it devastated the counselor. And again, I can't remember her name, but she wanted to meet with me because now we're hearing things from other children that, oh, well, this was happening. And this girl went up to him after school and we heard he was approached and threatened. And so now the counselor wants to meet with me because now we've put this off on the police. And they want to start an investigation. And I said, well, here's the time and the date that I've heard that this has happened. So you need to pull your video surveillance. So we go in and we meet with the counselor, and she's crying and she's, upset. And I'm there, 2-3 days after his funeral, trying to, figure out what's happened. And she said, he came to me Friday and said, he needed help and that he was having problems with somebody in class. And I told him to go to the dean. And, my head's saying, choke her now.
Right. Understandably.
And I said, why would you do that? And she was so beside herself, she couldn't even answer me. I'm sorry. It was wrong. Of course it was wrong. You should have investigated and you should have helped him. You don't just send kids to the dean. Was he beat up? Was he bleeding? Was there a fight? You're his counselor.
Right.
You
That's
should
your
have.
job.
And then what else I said to her? I said, why wasn't I called? They never even told me. 5 days later, my son kills himself. And now they want to talk about it. You should have called me Friday and said, hey, I didn't help him. But by the way, your son was in here and he's having some problems. You might want to talk to him about it. Nothing. Not even a phone call.
And there were no consequences or training that they offered.
So I was told to not get involved. But again, I knew lots of people that were teachers in the district and at other schools, and no, there should be counselors there. And it took them like a while. Like this should have been immediate. Like all these kids knew him. They finally had the crisis team, I think, come in what they're supposed to do. And then, if anybody needs to talk, they're here. This is what's going on. But it was after the fact that I threw a fit. I was told not to get involved in the investigation and that they would come to me with conclusions of the kids and the boys that were threatening and whatever was happening. And that went on for months. And nothing, just nothing. Finally, the investigator comes to the house and he says, the investigation is done. And he said there was lots of things in there. He didn't let me see it, and he wouldn't specifically talk about what they were going to do. But he says, I can almost promise you that the principal's not going to be there next year. And the thing with the emails, that was a big no. Just going over what they did wrong and that they realized things that were wrong, and that they were taking care of it. And again, my daughter was graduating, and I wanted to be just done with the district because, again, they failed him on so many levels at so many different times that I was just done. Nothing happened. Nobody was suspended. They were all talked to because of the investigation, but there was no repercussions whatsoever. Let's forget about it. Let's not talk about it. It's over. We're moving on. So it comes time now for a yearbook. So Brianna and her best friend Bobby, they're seniors, and they're like, okay, maybe they both were in yearbook. I can't remember, but they wanted to put a page together for him. And they were shot down by the vice principal saying, absolutely not. We're not even going to put his picture in the yearbook. And I lost my mind. Lost my mind. So I called them and I said, well, I'm going to bring somebody with me. So I brought my attorney and I brought a friend that worked for the FBI. Not that that was a big deal, but I wanted to know. And she was a profiler. So she knew when people would sit there and talk and lie. Like she could tell you he's lying right now. So I brought 2 people with me. She didn't work for the FBI. She worked, anyways, she had been trained and all of that. Mm-hmm. But I brought her and my attorney with me and didn't say he was my attorney, just said I'm bringing people with me for support and I want to meet with principal. So the vice principal didn't even come to this meeting. And I said, how dare you say to my daughter and her best friend that they cannot do a page for my son? We're all open to options here for buying pages. It's all about money for the yearbook. We can put whatever we want in there as long as it's appropriate. Well, we just didn't want to bring it up and we don't want the kids to talk about it. And I'm like, okay, so when you tell me in 20 years that you don't think it's not okay for them to open a yearbook and go, oh, look, there's James. I remember James. What are they going to, oh God, suicide's in their brain. They're all going to commit suicide now. I said, he was a student here. And these are memories that these kids are going to have no matter what you do and how much you try to hide it. And the principal says to me, I don't know where that came from. Those girls were never told they couldn't do a page. He was totally 100% lying. Vice principal wouldn't come into the meeting at all. He's the one that said it to them. Nope, get the pictures out of here. You guys cannot do a page. Can't talk about James anywhere in the yearbook. Nothing about him can be in there. He got 2 pages, I think, and we paid for nothing. Yeah, they got to write some stuff and put his pictures in. How dare you? It was like a stigma. Like, don't talk about it. We can't talk about suicide. We can't talk about it because it's contagious. People will start doing it. People want to do things for attention. And don't talk about mental health. And if you have issues, and, they just try to cover everything up, and it's terrible. That there's no real help for these kids that are having issues. And from the age of probably 12 until, I don't even know, 25. It's super crucial. Like, everything is so over dramatic to, you feel things differently. Like, now it's just like, yeah, well, I'm way into life now, like, whatever, like, but when you're a kid, things are so real to you.
Yeah. And why did you decide not to take legal action?
So, again, so much going on. Fog. I can't remember a lot of things. I had people calling me and talking to me and trying to get me to go to group therapies. And I can't remember a lot of what was going on around me. And I met with a friend that was an attorney. A couple times I met with him, and they were ready. And they were like, 100% we want to take your case on. But we need to advise you on what's going to happen and how long things like this take. And maybe the outcome isn't going to be what we want, because it wasn't even about money. It was about opening things up and making them admit to what was wrong and what they were doing wrong. And how just because you've got, 2,000 parents here with millions of dollars and major careers that give you money and want you to hide things, or, oh, my kid's not in trouble, put him back in class, whatever. It kind of scared me a little bit when we started talking about things like, just know they're going to pick through your life. They're going to go back into your life, and they're going to look at your life as a teenager. They're going to look at your husband's life as a teenager. They're going to pick through what's happening with your daughter if she's ever got into anything or any trouble or skipped class or, whatever. Just they're going to pick through your lives, and they're going to pick out things, and they're going to pick.
They're going to play dirty.
And it's going to be not easy. And I just didn't want to do that. I was trying to protect my husband and my daughter.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about me. I was broken already. But I was trying not to break them. So I didn't.
Yeah.
And he gave me their statute of limitations. I think it was 2 years. So I had 2 years to think about things and file motions if I wanted to and all of that. And I just never did. I let it go. And I shouldn't have. I probably should have pursued it. And again, like I said, if I had smaller children still in school and I had to deal with the district and all of that, I wanted it to go away.
Yeah.
I wanted to not have to deal with the school district anymore because it was so horrible in so many different levels.
Yeah, I know. I've had my fair share of interactions with CCSD, and I cannot stand them.
Private school or homeschool if you have children, Destiny.
And so when I was there at Coronado, I think it was either 2015 or 2016. I think it was 2015. We had a student, her name I think was Megan, that committed suicide. Did you have anyone reach out, or did anything come back up when that happened, since you said that was the third one at that school?
So there was one. Okay, so James was September, so May, right before him, there was a student. And I wish I would have done a little research before I come in to see you, and I would have had his name, and I would have given you the teacher's name and all that. But it was a big deal because Brianna was running track when this kid committed suicide. And I remember we were at a big track meet, and it was right before state, and we didn't understand why some of the runners weren't there. And then Brianna explained to us there was a boy that killed himself a couple days ago, and a lot of people on the team were friends with him. And it was, horrible thing. But again, you're going through that motion of, did you know him? And, let's talk about this. And she had said to me that he was having some sort of inappropriate relationship with one of his teachers. And they had found text messages and videos and things like that and found out. So things were being approached. And I wasn't involved in any of that, but from what I understand, when they started to question him and question her, I heard that he had taken off, and they must have pinged him with his phone or something, and they found him at a park, and before they could get to him, he killed himself. And again, I brought that all up with the attorney going, nothing was ever done with that. They let the teacher go and hid everything with, I don't know if she was fired or just released, like you can't work here anymore. But then I heard that she was teaching in Arizona or something like that. And I'm like, how do you not report things like that? And you just they don't want that stigma on the school or on them.
Yeah, because
or
it's
their
all about their
district.
image.
And it's like, but now you've let this teacher that hasn't had an inappropriate relationship with a student that was, he was driving, so he had to have at least been 16, is now teaching at another school with other children. So that couples I heard it was that his mother was a single mother, I think, and he had a younger sister. But his grandparents, the grandfather used to call me and talk to me about pain and just what he went through and just how horrible everything at the school was. And just if I ever needed anything, I think his name was George. Now I have to look up names, but he was fantastic with me. And he would just, I don't know how he got my phone number. Everything's just out there, you know, oops. But yeah, he called me and we talked for hours and just, you know, he talked about his daughter and he talked about his granddaughter and he talked about his grandson and, you know, just offered me just insights on, you know, how to try to deal with things and how much pain they were still in. And then I heard he died a couple years after that and it was probably from heartbreak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing was ever done with that situation from what I understand either. Hidden, swept under the rug. And then James. And then a couple years after James, I hear about the girl that climbed and when you were in school there.
Right. And I'm sure that there's...
And who knows what happened with that.
I know we did a vigil. I went to her vigil. So did they have a vigil or anything for James?
They did. Again, just, you know, the fog. Right after... and I had news people like Channel 8, Channel 3 contacted me and they wanted to be at the vigil. Like it was a big thing what was going on because the school was trying to hide so much. And it rained and poured that night. And I swear James did that. Yeah. But so they had a vigil at one of the parks up. I want to say it's up kind of by where your parents are at. Up there. And I could stay for a little bit. And then I kind of lost it. You know, kids were getting up and starting to talk. And there was a couple girls that I had brought up to the counselor the next week and said, you know, there was a girl that got up and she said she was thinking about things and somebody should probably talk to her parents and nothing, you know, they just don't do anything. Right. Ever. But then it was raining so hard and then there was a crash and a big fire. So both of the news outlets that were coming didn't show up. Wow. And it was fine because I didn't need things to be I'm so private. My husband is so private. I get all of this, you know, the podcast, TikTok, social media, you know, Brianna's into a lot of that too, but we're very private. I don't post things. I don't scroll through things. I think a lot of bullying and a lot of bad things happen through social media.
Absolutely.
And again, back then it was not new, but newer. So us as parents that didn't grow up with all of this, we're still trying to figure out how to get in and do things, you know, to watch your kids and protect your kids. I don't handle the negativity well, you know, so you see somebody tries to do something like you're doing for awareness and just to get things out there, you know, and be positive about things. And then you get the ugliness and the trolls and it's like, oh, well, look at her haircut and her dress is ugly and she's fat. And there's just so much hate. Yeah. That I just don't do it. I don't watch the news anymore. I probably don't know anything that's going on anymore because I just refuse. And somebody will bring it up and I'm like, no, I didn't see that because I don't scroll and I don't do the news anymore because I don't want to know.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, there's all kinds of research on the connection between depression and anxiety and social media, the news, because none of it has your best interests at heart. They're putting stuff out there that sells. There's so much hate.
There's so much hate. It's
negativity.
Terrible. Yes.
Anything that sells, anything that is
and that's it. It's all attention and money and it's like, I can't change any of that. And I know if we all got together and tried to change things, we probably could. But again, I'd rather not. Just my husband with politics. It's like, don't want to talk about it. Don't want to hear about it. I'm going upstairs. You know, like I just avoid it.
Right.
Because it's, you know, it's so much.
Well, and you have enough going on. You know, like when something like this happens, it puts you in survival mode. Like you're just trying to get from one day to the next. So anything extra on top of that could... You know, you're already working against the grain when something like this happens. Life is hard without trauma.
Right.
And then something like this happens and it's like...
I have learned that it's just one day at a time now.
Yeah.
I will do things spur of the moment, not so much socially and parties and things like that because I have social anxiety now. But just if I want to take off, I just take off. If I don't want to go to work one day, if I make sure that... Brianne, my family, you know, sisters, my daughter, my husband, I love you no matter what, fighting, arguing, just you have to live every day and you have to show that and do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Because again, still preaching it to my husband because, you know, he's, you know, you just have to live. You have to take vacations. You have to take that breath. You can't let so much stuff bother you all the time.
Right.
Because then it just, it buries you.
Is that one of the positive things that you would say that you took from this? Is it's made you more appreciative of
Yeah,
things like
I try not to look so far into the future.
Yeah.
And before I was building, I was building lives for my kids. And, this is what we got to do. And this is what you got to do. And this now it's just like one day, whatever, just still have those goals and do your, get your accomplishments. But you have to live every day. Get up and take that deep breath.
Right.
Whether you're upset, sad, sick, just take a deep breath.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to like parents, friends, siblings, really anyone that knows a loved one that is suffering from depression or anxiety?
It's really hard because all kids are different. Like I said, we never found a note. We never found there was just nothing. He was just gone one day. So we wanted that. We wanted to have some sort of comfort or some sort of closure. And maybe it would have helped if we would have found something like that, but don't ever count on that. Again, there's not always signs where you can step in and stop someone from committing suicide. You just have to be aware of what's going on with your kids every day. When they ask for help, give them help.
Yeah.
Let them be what they want, not what you want.
Right.
Yeah, just because we do that. We build for our kids. This is what I think you should do. I want to do this. And, whether it's someone that wants to do art and you try to talk about, well, you can't do nothing with art in your life. And, you need to be a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer. Just let them be kids.
Yeah.
And just watch them. Yeah. Mental health is so real. Like I said, when we were growing up, regardless of who our parents were and what they did, we just didn't talk about things like that. You didn't talk about being sad. You didn't talk about thinking about hurting yourself. You didn't talk about kids bullying you at school. You dealt with it. There was nobody really to help you.
Right.
You just had to deal with it yourself. And you try to fix that as you get older and change things as you get older. Like, I'm never going to do that with my kids, or I'm never going to do that with I'm not going to raise my kids that way. But you kind of revert to what you know.
What you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's different because, bullying has always been around, but with the onset of technology and social media and things like that, they're going home with it. So
we didn't have any of that.
Right. So
you wanted to make a phone call, you used a payphone.
Yeah.
It's everywhere now. Just, yeah.
So they leave and they don't even, like you said, in 2011, it was still new. But now, like, my mom worries about Cash because he is exposed. He's 15.
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day. You could be up. Like, I have really, really bad anxiety. Like, it will wake me up in the middle of the night and I won't be able to go back to sleep.
I never knew what it was until I got it, but yeah.
So if I wake up at 3 a.m., I can roll over and I can start scrolling through Instagram to thinking, okay, I need to get my mind off whatever it is that's stressing me out. And then you find something else. You see, someone that, you have interest in doing this on social media, or, oh, this girl, this body, or she has this face, or, oh, I'm not as pretty as her. Or it's these subconscious thoughts that roll in because you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, or the people, when there's bullying going on, they have access to you now outside of school.
Sure.
So,
like I said, it's on your phone, it's on your computer, it's on your tablet, it's on the TV. It's just, we didn't have any of that. So again, we're learning to deal with all of this just like you guys are growing up. So it's very difficult to have that all the time. I'm so not like, for instance, when Brianna comes home and we have dinner, everybody's phone's in their face all the time. I'm like, phone's up.
Yeah.
We need to talk. We need to see each other. I need to see her, or I'll stop talking and everyone will finally look and be like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm not talking anymore because you're not even looking at me. Right? So it's just that focus isn't there. It's always on the phone or the computer or the tablet. And it's just, videos and just all of it. And I'm like, what are you doing over there? We're watching a movie and you're not even watching the movie. It's just, nobody puts their stuff down anymore.
Yeah.
So I won't go. I won't have dinner with you at the table or go out to dinner if everybody's going to have their phone. I make them put them away. Yeah. I know that sounds terrible, but it's like,
doesn't sound terrible.
We're going to be here for 30 minutes. Just communicate with me for 30 minutes. Let me see your face. Let me see your teeth. What's happening?
Yeah.
Not your phone. Like, you're peeking over. So, for us, it was like that with the kids when they were little. And for us, it was kind of a savior. They had those little video games that came out, the Game Boys and all that. And it was like, oh, God, give them a game. They're going to be good at dinner. Now we regret all of that because you can't get anything away from them. It's terrible. Right. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on moving forward.
For
'cause
sure.
It's just going to get
I believe
worse
there
and
just
worse.
needs to be time. And
Yeah.
you don't have to take things away from your children or your teenagers. Even Brianna's almost 30.
Yeah.
It's like, put your phone up. It's getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
I get to see you for 12 hours. Come on.
Right.
Just, yeah. But it's just the way of life now.
I know.
There's not a message on your phone that you don't see within 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I will still put my phone down and I'll find it like the next day. I don't know where my phone is. How do you not know where your phone is? I go, because my phone's not attached to my hip like yours is.
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. I think it's going to be challenging for parents in the coming generations to fight that. But is there anything that you wanted to add that I haven't already covered?
No, I don't know. I think that, do you have any more questions for me that you haven't covered?
I think that that's it. I just wanted to say thank you again for coming on and being willing to discuss this, because I know it has to be, I'm assuming, the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
I won't lie. Your mom sent me a text and said, hey, or it was a voicemail actually. She says, hey, I've been meaning to tell you that Destiny wanted me to ask you if you wanted to do this. And I didn't call her back for like 2 days.
I know.
And it gave me a little anxiety going, yeah, I could probably do it, but man, it makes me a little nervous. And then she called me one morning before she went to work and she's like, are you mad at me? And I was like, no, I swear I was going to call you today. And I totally will do this for Destiny 100% because it makes me feel good to talk about things. And I want to be able to help her get that stuff out there.
Yeah.
I said, but yeah, I have issues. And, just like when you call and ask me to go out, you call me day of instead of 2 days before and let me prepare for it because I have social anxiety.
Yeah.
You got to give me a minute. Give me a minute to process.
She doesn't understand, we talked about this, introverts and extroverts and how introverts need time to mentally prepare.
I get it now 100% because I was just like your mother. You couldn't keep me away from what was going on.
Right.
Out all the time and just involved in everything. And just, it changed me. I didn't know what panic attack or anxiety or any of that was until after this. And I remember the first couple times trying to do things with Brianna, getting out of the house and just being in the car away from the home and not being able to breathe, going, you need to take me home. I need to go home right now. I don't know what's happening. And just having that, I thought for a little while I wasn't going to be able to leave the house.
Yeah.
I felt that was my safe place. And then just gradually, again, it was hard to still do things, but it was better, but I didn't know. And then finally, you need to go see the doctor. You need to talk to someone. And I'm like, what is happening to me? And why am I freaking out?
Right.
But yeah, anxiety and
it's real.
It's real. Mm-hmm. It's real.
And despite all that, you're here, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
It means a lot. If you guys have any other questions for Tina, I will have her contact information available on my social media channels. And if there's anyone out there who is struggling with depression and anxiety or suicidal thoughts, there's always a place that you can turn to. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 988, and you can dial that at any time. It's 24 hours. And I encourage everyone to seek help if it's something that they need. I appreciate the love and you guys having an open mind as always. And I will see you again in 2 weeks to talk more elephants.